Before this story begins, make sure you like this video, subscribe, and stay to the end, because what happens in this rich woman's mansion will shock you and melt your heart. For 9 long years, the little girl kept scratching behind her right ear. It happened when she was nervous, when she was confused, when someone spoke and she couldn't understand why their mouths were moving. Every doctor from the big hospitals in Lagos to the special ear doctors in London said the same thing. There is nothing we can do. Your daughter will be deaf forever. Her mother, Mrs. Godsent, was one of the richest women in all of Nigeria. She owned hotels, banks, and shopping malls. She had enough money to buy 10 houses every single day if she wanted to. But all that money couldn't help her daughter hear a single sound. Then one day, a simple gatekeeper saw something strange in the girl's ear, something that made his stomach turn cold. What he found inside will shock you. Mrs. Godsent lived in the biggest house on Banana Island, the most expensive place in all of Lagos. Her house had swimming pools, gardens with flowers from around the world, and gates made of pure gold. But inside that beautiful house, there was only sadness. Her daughter, Olivia, was 9 years old and had never heard anything. Not the birds singing in the morning. Not her mother's voice saying, "I love you." Not even the sound of laughter. The world was completely silent for little Olivia. Mrs. Godsent tried everything. She took Olivia to doctors in America, doctors in England, doctors in Germany. Some doctors charged more money for one visit than most Nigerians make in their whole lives. They did big scans of Olivia's head. They did tests that hurt and made Olivia cry silent tears. But they all said the same thing. She was born this way. Nothing can fix it. You must accept it. But Mrs. Godsent couldn't accept it. Olivia was all she had left. Her husband, Obi, had died in a terrible helicopter crash when Olivia was just a baby. He never got to see his daughter grow up. He never got to hold her little hand. The day Obi died was still fresh in Mrs. Godsent's mind like it had happened yesterday. He had been flying to Port Harcourt for a business meeting. The weather was good. The helicopter was new. Everything seemed perfect. Then, somewhere over the water, the engine failed. The helicopter fell from the sky like a bird with broken wings. By the time they found the wreckage, Obi was already gone. Mrs. Godsent was 8 months pregnant with Olivia at the time. She went into labor from the shock and grief. Olivia was born early, small and fragile, in a hospital room that smelled of antiseptic and sorrow. Mrs. Godsent held her baby girl and whispered, "Your daddy loved you so much. He wanted to meet you so badly." But the doctors noticed something wrong right away. The baby didn't respond to sounds. When they clapped near her ears, she didn't blink. When they rang bells, she didn't turn her head. They ran tests and came back with devastating news. "Your daughter has severe hearing loss. It's permanent." Mrs. Godsent refused to believe it. Not her baby. Not after everything she had already lost. So she started what would become 9 years of searching, spending, and hoping for a miracle that seemed to never come. The first specialist she took Olivia to was in Lagos, at a private hospital in Victoria Island. Dr. Adeleke was supposed to be the best ear specialist in West Africa. His waiting room was filled with wealthy patients, all hoping he could solve their problems. Mrs. Godsent waited for 2 hours before he saw them. Olivia was only 3 months old then, tiny and quiet in her mother's arms. Dr. Adeleke examined the baby for maybe 15 minutes. He used instruments with lights, made clicking sounds near her ears, watched her eyes for reactions. Finally, he sat back and removed his glasses. "Mrs. Godsent, I'm very sorry. Your daughter has what we call congenital sensorineural hearing loss. It means the nerves that carry sound to the brain are damaged. She was born this way. There's no surgery, no medication, no treatment that can fix this. But she's so young. Mrs. Godsent pleaded. Maybe as she grows. It won't change, he said, not unkindly. I know this is hard to hear, but you need to start preparing for a life where your daughter will never hear. Sign language, special schools, hearing aids might help a little, but she will always be deaf. I'm truly sorry. Mrs. Godsent left that office in tears. She refused to accept it, so she took Olivia to another doctor, and another, and another. When Olivia was 2 years old, Mrs. Godsent flew her to London. The appointment was at Great Ormond Street Hospital, one of the best children's hospitals in the world. The doctor there was a woman named Dr. Patricia Hamilton, who had written books on childhood hearing disorders. Dr. Hamilton was thorough. She ran tests for 3 full days. Auditory brainstem response tests, otoacoustic emissions tests, genetic screening. Each test cost thousands of pounds. Each test came back with the same result. Severe to profound hearing loss, bilateral, irreversible. On the 4th day, Dr. Hamilton sat down with Mrs. Godsent in a small consultation room painted pale blue. I've reviewed all the results, she said gently. I understand you're looking for hope, and I wish I could give it to you. But your daughter's hearing loss is permanent. The structure of her inner ear shows damage that cannot be repaired. No surgery exists for this type of condition. My advice is to focus on what you can do. Teach her sign language, get her into programs for deaf children, help her live a full life without sound. Mrs. Godsent sat there feeling like the world was ending. Are you absolutely certain? Is there no chance at all? I'm certain, Dr. Hamilton said softly. I'm so sorry. The flight back to Nigeria was the longest of Mrs. Godsent's life. She held Olivia on her lap and cried silently the whole way, her tears falling onto her daughter's hair. But still, she didn't give up. When Olivia was 4, they went to Germany. A specialist in Munich had developed a new type of cochlear implant that was supposed to work even in cases like Olivia's. Mrs. Godsent paid nearly 10 million naira for the consultation and testing. The German hospital was cold and efficient. Everything was white and chrome and spotless. The doctors spoke English with thick accents and examined Olivia with machines that beeped and whirred. After a week of tests, the lead surgeon called Mrs. Godsent into his office. Frau Godsent, I must be honest with you. The cochlear implant will not work for your daughter. Her auditory nerve shows no response to stimulation. Even if we surgically implant the device, it will not restore her hearing. I cannot, in good conscience, perform this surgery. It would be taking your money for something that will not help her. At least he was honest. But honesty didn't make it hurt less. Every night, Mrs. Godsent sat in her big office and looked at pictures of Obi. She would cry and whisper, "Why? Why did you leave us? Why can't I help our baby?" The guilt felt like heavy rocks sitting on her chest. Sometimes she felt like she couldn't breathe. If only she hadn't asked him to take that meeting. If only she had told him to drive instead of fly. If only, if only, if only. The words echoed in her mind like a curse she couldn't break. The mansion had everything money could buy. Crystal chandeliers hung from ceilings so high you had to crane your neck to see them. The floors were made of marble imported from Italy, so shiny you could see your reflection. There were rooms Mrs. Godsent had never even entered. Guest bedrooms with silk sheets that had never been slept on. Libraries filled with books that had never been read. Entertainment halls with grand pianos that had never been played. All sitting empty and unused. But what good was a palace if it felt like a prison? The domestic staff, the cooks, the cleaners, the drivers, the gardeners, they all moved through the house like ghosts. They had learned to walk quietly, speak in whispers, and never, ever disturb Madame when she was in one of her moods. And these days she was always in a mood. The joy had left that house the day Obi died, and it never came back. Mrs. Godsent had become obsessed. She spent hours on the phone with medical coordinators in different countries. She flew to Switzerland to meet with a doctor who claimed to have a revolutionary procedure. She remembered that trip clearly. The doctor's office was in Zurich, in a building so modern it looked like it was made entirely of glass. He examined Olivia for less than 10 minutes, then said the same thing all the others had said. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Godsent. There's nothing we can do." That trip cost her nearly 2 million naira for nothing but disappointment. She traveled to South Africa to consult with a specialist who had written books about childhood deafness. That doctor was kinder, gentler, but the message was the same. Your daughter's condition is permanent. No surgery can fix this. You need to focus on helping her live a full life without hearing. She can still be happy, still be successful. Deafness doesn't have to be a tragedy if you give her the right support. But to Mrs. Godsent, it felt like a tragedy. Because Olivia would never hear her father's favorite song, would never hear the sound of rain on the roof, would never hear "I love you" spoken out loud. She even went to a monastery in India where monks claimed to heal through meditation and prayer. She sat in a room that smelled of incense and sandalwood, watching as robed men chanted over Olivia for hours. Olivia fell asleep on her lap, peaceful and unaware. When it was over, the head monk touched Mrs. Godsent's shoulder gently and said, "Some things are meant to be. Peace comes from acceptance, not fighting." But how could she accept it? How could she give up on her only child, her only connection to the husband she had loved with all her heart? Back in Nigeria, she went to churches. She went to prayer mountains where prophets promised miracles if she just had enough faith. One prophet told her to sow a seed of 5 million naira and Olivia would hear within 7 days. Mrs. Godsent paid it without hesitation. 7 days passed. Olivia was still deaf. When she went back to complain, the prophet said, "Your faith was not strong enough. You must believe more." She wanted to scream at him, to demand her money back, but what was the point? Money meant nothing if it couldn't save her daughter. Another prophet told her Olivia's deafness was a curse from her ancestors and she needed to perform a special ritual. Mrs. Godsent, desperate and exhausted, agreed. She brought a white goat, 7 white candles, and more money than she cared to count. The prophet performed his ritual, speaking in tongues, pouring oil on Olivia's head. Nothing changed. Olivia was still deaf. She left that place feeling more broken than when she arrived. How many charlatans would take advantage of her desperation? How many false prophets would drain her wallet while offering empty promises? Nothing worked. Each time they would run the same tests, take the same x-rays, look at the same scans, and each time they would shake their heads and say, "I'm sorry, Mrs. Godsent. Your daughter's auditory nerves are damaged. There is no surgery for this, no medicine, no cure. You need to accept reality and focus on giving her a good life with sign language and special education." But how could she accept it? How could she tell Obi, wherever he was watching from heaven, that she had failed their daughter? That all her money, all her connections, all her desperate prayers couldn't fix this one thing? So she did the only thing she knew how to do. She kept trying. She kept spending. She kept hoping that the next doctor, the next country, the next miracle would be the one that worked. She didn't realize the miracle she was looking for wasn't in a fancy hospital overseas. It wasn't on a prayer mountain. It was about to walk through her golden gates with empty pockets and a heavy heart. Far away from the mansion in Banana Island, in a small village in Enugu State, a young man named Precious was facing his own kind of hell. Precious was Obi's younger brother, but their lives couldn't have been more different. While Obi had been the successful businessman who married into wealth, Precious was the struggling graduate who couldn't find his footing in life. He loved his older brother deeply and had cried for weeks when he heard about the helicopter crash. He wanted to help Mrs. Godsent and baby Olivia, But what could he do? He had nothing to offer but his condolences. Years passed. Precious finished university with a degree in chemistry. He was smart, hardworking, and full of dreams. But in Nigeria, those things alone were not enough. Jobs were scarce. Connections mattered more than qualifications. And Precious had no connections. He applied to pharmaceutical companies, hoping to use his chemistry degree. Some didn't even reply. Others invited him for interviews, made him wait for hours, then told him they had found someone else, usually someone whose uncle or father knew somebody important. One interview stood out in his memory. He had traveled all the way to Lagos, spending his last bit of money on transport. The bus ride took 8 hours and cost 3,000 naira he could barely afford. He arrived at the big pharmaceutical company building, wearing his only suit that was now getting tight around the shoulders because he couldn't afford a new one. He carried his certificate folder under his arm, freshly printed transcripts that cost him 500 naira, and a heart full of hope. The receptionist looked at him like he was dirt on her shoe. She had long artificial nails painted bright red, and she barely looked up from her phone when he approached. "Sit there and wait," she said, pointing at a hard bench with torn plastic covering. He waited for 3 hours. Other people came and went. Some were called in after waiting only 15 minutes. Precious watched them. Most were well-dressed, confident, carrying expensive briefcases. They knew people. They had connections. They belonged here. He didn't. Finally, a man called him into an office. The man was fat, sweating despite the air conditioning, and he had the bored expression of someone who had already made up his mind. He barely looked at Precious's certificates. Instead, he asked, "Who do you know in this company? Who referred you?" "No one, sir," Precious said honestly. "I applied online when I saw the position advertised." The man laughed, not a kind laugh, a mocking one that made Precious feel small. "You think we hire people who just walk in from the street? This is Lagos, my friend, not some village. You need connections. You need someone to vouch for you, someone important. Do you have that?" "I have my degree, sir. I graduated with second-class upper. I have good recommendations from my professors." "Recommendations from professors nobody has heard of? From a federal university?" The man waved his hand dismissively. "Come back when you have connections. When you know somebody who knows somebody. Until then, you're wasting my time." Precious left that office feeling smaller than he had ever felt in his life. He walked through the streets of Lagos, past the fancy cars and tall buildings, past the restaurants where people ate meals that cost more than his monthly salary, and he felt like a failure. All those years of studying, all those nights reading by candlelight because they couldn't afford electricity, all those sacrifices his mother had made selling vegetables in the market to pay his school fees. And for what? To be laughed at by a fat man who couldn't even remember his name 5 minutes later? He took a job teaching chemistry at a small private school in Enugu. The school was in a rundown building with cracked walls and leaking roofs. The students were the children of poor families who couldn't afford better schools. The pay was terrible, 25,000 naira a month. That was barely enough to feed himself, let alone help his family. But it was better than nothing. Then his mother got sick. Precious's mother was a strong woman who had raised him and his older brother Obi alone after their father died years ago. She sold vegetables in the village market, waking up before dawn every day to set up her stall. She sold tomatoes, peppers, onions, okra, whatever was in season. She never complained. She never asked for help. She was tough like iron, his mother, or so he thought. But one morning, she couldn't get out of bed. "Precious," she called weakly from her room. "I don't feel well. My body feels heavy." He went to her and found her lying in bed, her face swollen, her legs puffy like balloons. When he pressed his finger against her leg, It left a deep dent that took several seconds to disappear. He had studied enough biology to know this wasn't normal. This was bad. He took her to the village health center. The nurse there was an older woman named Sister Agnes who had been treating people in the village for 20 years. She took one look at his mother's swollen legs, checked her blood pressure, and her face became serious. "This is serious. Your mother needs to go to the hospital in town. She needs proper tests. Her kidneys might be failing." Kidneys? Precious's heart dropped into his stomach. "Go. Now. Don't wait." At the hospital in Enugu, the doctor ran blood tests and urine tests. Precious waited in the hallway, praying under his breath. His younger sister Kayamika sat next to him, holding his hand, both of them terrified. When the doctor came back, his face told them everything before he even spoke. "Your mother's kidneys are failing. The tests show her kidney function is below 20%. She needs dialysis 3 times a week, or she will die within months. Maybe weeks." Precious's mouth went dry. "Dialysis? How much does that cost?" 15,000 naira per session. 3 times a week. That's 45,000 per week. And that's just dialysis. She'll also need medications, special diet, monitoring. Precious did the math in his head. His entire month's salary was 25,000 naira. 1 week of his mother's treatment cost almost twice what he made in a month. How could he possibly afford this? His younger sister, Kayamika, was 17 years old, in her final year of secondary school, preparing for her WAEC exams. She wanted to be a nurse. She was smart, ambitious, full of dreams, just like Precious had been at her age. She was supposed to take her exams in 3 months. But now, with their mother sick, Kayamika had to drop out of school to help take care of her. Precious watched his little sister give up her dreams, and it broke his heart. She cooked for their mother, bathed her, helped her to the bathroom, cleaned her when she was too weak to clean herself. Kayamika never complained, but Precious saw the sadness in her eyes when her classmates walked past their house in their uniforms, carrying their books, heading to school while she stayed home washing bedpans. Precious sold everything he could sell. His laptop went first, the one he had saved for 2 years to buy. He sold it for 40,000 naira, less than half what he paid for it. But it gave him enough money for 1 week of dialysis. Then his phone, his good shoes, his university textbooks, which felt like selling pieces of his soul. Each book represented late nights studying, knowledge gained, dreams built. But dreams don't pay for dialysis. He borrowed money from friends. First, they helped. His university classmates sent him 2,000 here, 5,000 there. His teaching colleagues gave what they could. But after a few months, they stopped answering his calls. People got tired of lending money that was never paid back. He understood. He would have done the same. He went to the bank to ask for a loan. The bank officer was a young man, probably the same age as Precious, but he sat behind his desk like a king on a throne. He looked at Precious's application and laughed. Actually laughed in his face. "What collateral do you have?" the man asked. "What property can you use as security?" "I have my university degree," Precious said desperately. "I have my teaching job. I'm employed. I can pay back slowly. A degree is not collateral. It's just paper. A teaching job that pays 25,000 naira is not security. That's poverty wages, my friend. Come back when you have land, a house, or a car to put up as guarantee. Until then, I can't help you." Precious left that bank feeling like the world was crushing him. His mother was dying. His sister had given up her dreams. And he, a university graduate, couldn't even get a loan to save his own mother's life. He began to understand why people committed crimes, why they did yahoo fraud, why they stole. When you're watching your mother die and nobody will help, morality becomes a luxury you can't afford. But Precious couldn't do it. His mother had raised him better than that. So he suffered in silence. That's when he saw the advertisement posted outside a small shop near Lekki. He had traveled to Lagos to beg his brother Obi's widow for help, even though pride made it painful. He stood outside the golden gates of the God-sent mansion, rehearsing what he would say. But when he pressed the buzzer and told the security guard he wanted to see Mrs. Godsent, the man looked at him with contempt. "Madam doesn't see visitors without appointments. Write a letter." "But I'm family. I'm her late husband's brother. I don't care if you're the president. No appointment, no entry. Move along before I call police for you." Precious stood outside those golden gates, feeling like a beggar at a king's door. He turned to leave, defeated, when he saw the paper posted on a nearby wall. Gatekeeper needed. Banana Island. Good pay. Apply in person. He stared at that paper for a long time. A gatekeeper. A man who opens gates for rich people. Was this what his chemistry degree had come to? Was this what all those years of education were for? But then he thought of his mother lying in that hospital bed, her body swollen, her eyes tired, asking him every day, "Did you get money for my treatment this week?" He thought of Kayamika scrubbing floors instead of sitting in a classroom. He thought of the dialysis machine that was keeping his mother alive, beeping out a rhythm that cost 45,000 naira every 7 days. Pride doesn't pay hospital bills. Pride doesn't keep your mother alive. So he swallowed his shame, straightened his faded shirt, and walked to the address listed on the paper. That address led him right back to the God-sent mansion. Precious arrived at the God-sent mansion on a hot Thursday afternoon. The sun was beating down so hard that the air above the pavement seemed to shimmer and dance. He was 26 years old, tall and thin, wearing his only good shirt that was now faded from too many washings. He carried a small bag with his belongings, a change of clothes, a Bible his mother had given him with a note inside the cover that said, "God will make a way," and his university certificate wrapped in plastic to protect it from the rain. He stood outside the massive golden gates and stared up at them. They must have been 4 meters tall, with intricate designs of eagles and lions carved into the metal. A small camera watched him from above like an unblinking eye. He pressed the buzzer and waited, his heart beating fast in his chest. The gate buzzed open, and a security guard with a stern face and a scar across his cheek waved him through. Precious walked up the long driveway, his eyes widening at the beauty around him. The compound was bigger than his entire village square. There were fountains with water sparkling in the sunlight, shooting up in graceful arcs. There were flowers and colors he had never seen before. Bright blues, deep purples, fiery oranges, some as big as dinner plates. This was what real wealth looked like. And somewhere in this palace lived his niece, Olivia, whom he had never met. Obi's daughter. The head housekeeper, Auntie Patience, met him at the main entrance. She was a short woman with hard eyes that seemed to see everything wrong with you in one look. Her hair was pulled back in a tight bun that stretched her forehead skin. She wore a crisp uniform that probably cost more than his entire wardrobe. "You are Precious?" she asked, looking him up and down. "Yes, Ma," Precious replied, bowing his head respectfully. She looked at his name on the application form. Precious Okafor. "Are you related to Madam's late husband?" Precious hesitated. Finally, he said quietly, "He was my older brother, Ma." Auntie Patience's expression softened slightly. "I see. I'm sorry for your loss. Oga Obi was a good man. Does Madam know you're applying for this job?" "No, Ma. I tried to visit before, but I was told she doesn't see people without appointments." Auntie Patience studied him, then sighed. "Well, you're here now for the gatekeeper position. You will open the gates when Madam's cars come and go. You will sweep the compound every morning and evening. You will make sure no beggars, hawkers, or troublemakers disturb this house." She moved closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "And most importantly, you will never, ever talk to Madam's daughter. Do you hear me? Never." Precious nodded quickly. "Yes, Ma. I understand." "Do you?" Auntie Patience narrowed her eyes. Because the last gatekeeper didn't understand. He thought he could play with the child. Madam fired him the same day. She doesn't want people bothering her daughter. The child is special. She cannot hear anything. She lives in her own world, trapped in silence. You are to pretend she doesn't exist unless the house is literally on fire. Is that absolutely clear?" "Very clear, Ma," Precious said, though his heart felt heavy. Auntie Patience showed him to the small gatehouse. "You'll stay here. Meals will be brought twice a day. Your pay is 50,000 naira a month. You start tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock sharp." 50,000 naira. It was double what he made teaching. It was enough to pay for his mother's dialysis. It was hope. That night, Precious lay on the narrow bed and prayed. Really prayed. "God, I don't understand your plan. I don't understand why my brother died. Why my mother is sick. Why that little girl out there has never heard a single sound in 9 years. But I'm here now, and I'm asking you. If there's any way I can help, show me. Use me." He didn't know it yet, but God was listening. 3 weeks passed. Precious settled into his routine. Wake up. Sweep. Open gates. Close gates. Watch. Wait. But each day, from his little room by the gate, Precious watched Olivia in the garden. Olivia spent most of her days in the mansion's garden. It was her favorite place in the whole world. She loved the flowers, the red hibiscus, the yellow sunflowers, the purple bougainvillea. Every morning started the same way. Olivia woke up in her big bedroom. A maid would help her bathe and dress in beautiful clothes. But the maid never smiled at her, never tried to communicate. Breakfast was served in the big dining room. Olivia sat at one end, her mother at the other end, separated by 6 meters of polished wood. They might as well have been in different countries. After breakfast, Olivia would go to the garden. She would sit under the big mango tree and watch everything. The butterflies, the lizards, the clouds. In her silent world, beauty came from what she could see and feel and smell. She had learned to notice tiny details that other people missed. The staff moved around her like she was invisible. They cleaned around her without speaking, served her meals without smiling. She felt different, and different meant lonely. She also had a secret habit. Whenever she was nervous or confused or frustrated, she would reach up and scratch behind her right ear. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Sometimes she scratched so hard that the skin behind her ear turned red and raw. Her mother would put cream there, but Olivia would go right back to scratching. It wasn't just a nervous habit, though. There was something inside her ear that bothered her. Deep inside. Something that felt wrong, foreign, uncomfortable. She couldn't explain it to anyone, so she just scratched, and scratched, and scratched. Precious noticed. Day after day, he saw her scratching the same ear. He saw the way her small face would scrunch up in discomfort. It reminded him of something from his university classes. Foreign bodies in the ear canal. Blockages that could cause pain, infection, and even hearing loss. But what could he do? He was just the gatekeeper. If he broke the rules, he would lose this job and his mother would die. So he watched from a distance. And he worried. And he prayed. Then one hot afternoon in May, everything changed. Mrs. Godsent had traveled to Abuja for an important business meeting. She would be gone for 2 full days. The mansion felt different without her. More relaxed. Precious was sweeping the driveway. It was 3 o'clock, the hottest part of the day. He was thinking about his mother when he heard a sound. A small whimper. He looked up and saw Olivia sitting under the mango tree. But something was different today. She wasn't just scratching casually. She was digging frantically inside her ear with her little finger, her face twisted in real pain. Tears were streaming down her face. She was hurting, really, truly hurting. Precious dropped his broom. He looked around. No one else was there. No one else would help her. He knew the rule: never talk to the child. But he also knew that when a child is suffering right in front of you, you don't walk away. His feet made the decision. He walked across the garden, his heart pounding. When he reached Olivia and saw her face up close, saw the tears, saw the pain, he knew he couldn't walk away. He knelt beside her slowly. Olivia flinched, surprised. People didn't come close to her like this. Precious pointed to his own ear, then to hers. He made a gentle, questioning face. She stared at him, uncertain. He pulled out his small phone and drew a simple picture. A stick figure pointing at an ear with a big question mark. He showed it to her. She frowned, then slowly nodded. Precious turned on his phone's flashlight and gently tilted her head. What he saw made his heart stop. Deep inside her ear canal, hidden under layers of wax and dried blood, was something dark. At first he thought it was just wax. But then it moved. There was something alive inside that child's ear. Precious jerked back, his breath coming in gasps. He looked again, making sure his eyes weren't playing tricks. It was real. Something was living in there. His mind raced. Cockroaches sometimes crawled into people's ears while they slept. Usually they crawled back out. But sometimes they got stuck and couldn't find their way back. He thought about all the expensive doctors Mrs. Godsent had taken Olivia to see. They had done MRIs, genetic tests, nerve studies. But had any of them simply looked inside her ear with a light? Apparently not. He realized something else. If Olivia's ear canal was completely blocked by a foreign object, then maybe she was never truly born deaf. Maybe sound had simply never reached her eardrum. If he did nothing, that thing could spread infection to her brain. She could die. If he tried to remove it and failed, he could make things worse. He looked at Olivia's face. She was breathing fast, eyes wide and trusting. She had chosen to trust him. And in that moment, Precious made a choice. He would help her no matter the risk. He ran to the gatehouse and grabbed his first aid kit. Then he rushed to the kitchen. "I need tweezers," he told the cook, Auntie Ngozi, "and cotton swabs, and spirit. Are you hurt? I got a splinter. It's deep." She gave him tweezers and methylated spirit. Precious hurried back to Olivia. He knelt and showed her the tweezers, trying to explain what he was about to do. She looked scared. Precious put his hands together like he was praying. His message was clear. "I'm asking God to help me help you. Trust me." Slowly, Olivia tilted her head and sat very still. "God, guide my hands," Precious whispered. "Don't let me hurt this child." He turned on the flashlight and began to gently clean the wax with a cotton swab. Olivia flinched when the spirit touched her skin, but she didn't pull away. As he cleaned, he got a better view. The cockroach was huge, at least 4 centimeters long. It had been wedged in there for years, embedded in wax and dried blood. Parts of it were dead, but impossibly parts were still alive, twitching. Precious steadied his breathing. He had to be very careful. If he tried to pull it out all at once, it would break apart. He gently inserted the tweezers, moving with precision. Olivia whimpered when she felt the metal. He put his free hand on her shoulder, steadying her. "You're so brave," he whispered. "Just stay still." The tweezers touched the insect's hard shell. He grasped it gently and began to pull. It didn't budge. The thing was stuck, glued in place by years of wax and blood. Precious closed his eyes. "God, help me." He tried a different approach. Instead of pulling straight, He rotated the tweezers slightly, trying to loosen it. He felt something give way. It was working. He continued carefully. Twist, pull, pause, twist, pull, pause. Olivia was crying now. Silent tears poured down her face. Her hand gripped the grass. This had to hurt terribly. But she stayed still. The minutes stretched on. 20 minutes of careful, patient work. Then, finally, the insect came free. Precious withdrew the tweezers carefully. In the jaws was the cockroach, dead, mostly covered in wax and blood. It was the most disgusting thing he had ever seen. And the most beautiful, because this was what had stolen 9 years of Olivia's life. He placed it carefully on tissue, then looked back into her ear. There was still debris. He cleaned thoroughly with cotton swabs and spirit, removing every piece. When he finished, the ear canal was clean, clear, open. For the first time in 9 years, there was nothing blocking sound from reaching her eardrum. Now they would wait. Precious sat back, exhausted. The whole procedure had taken 40 minutes. Olivia touched her ear gently, confused. Something felt different. Then something magical happened. High above them, a bird chirped. Olivia's head snapped up. Her eyes went huge. Her mouth fell open in shock. She looked around frantically, trying to locate the source of this completely new sensation. What was that? The bird chirped again. Olivia pointed at the tree with a shaking finger. Her breath came in rapid gasps. She had heard it. Precious felt tears pour down his face. She had actually heard the bird singing. But she didn't know what sound was. To her, it was like suddenly developing a completely new sense. It was terrifying and amazing. More sounds crashed into her world. The wind, the fountain, car on the road, a dog barking. Olivia clapped her hands. The crack made her jump. She stared at her hands in amazement. She clapped again, then started laughing. Soon she was caught in a loop of laughing at the sound of her own laughter. She ran to the fountain and slapped the water. The splash was wonderful. She did it again and again. She stomped her feet and discovered different surfaces made different sounds. She tapped the metal gate and heard it ring. She was learning that different actions made different sounds. She grabbed Precious's shirt and made sounds with her mouth. Ah, oh, yeah. Each sound was an experiment. She tried to form words. Take, thank you. Precious sat there and cried. He cried from relief, from joy, from overwhelming emotion. Olivia continued exploring sound for nearly an hour. But eventually someone noticed. Auntie Patience came storming into the garden. What is going on here? Precious, what do you think you're? She stopped, because Olivia had turned toward her voice. Auntie Patience, Olivia said slowly. I can't hear you. Auntie Patience's legs gave out. She sat down hard, her hand over her mouth. What? How? The other staff came running. They all stopped and stared. Olivia was spinning in circles, pointing at things, trying to name the sounds. Precious showed Auntie Patience the dead cockroach. This was in her ear, Ma. I removed it. Auntie Patience stared in disbelief. A cockroach? All this time? We need to call a doctor, Auntie Ngozi said. No. Auntie Patience stood quickly. We need a doctor to confirm this before we tell Madam. Precious understood. I'll take full responsibility. I'll tell Mrs. Godsent I acted alone. Auntie Patience studied him. You saved this child. You're either the bravest man I've ever met or the most foolish. Probably both. She called Dr. Adeyemi, the family doctor. He arrived within 45 minutes. Dr. Adeyemi examined Olivia right there in the garden. He looked in her ear, did hearing tests. Olivia responded to everything. Finally, he sat back. This is extraordinary. The ear canal shows inflammation that will need antibiotics. But the eardrum is intact. With proper treatment, this child should regain most if not all of her hearing. He turned to Precious. You did this? Without medical training? Yes, sir. You could have caused severe damage, but instead you may have saved her life. If that infection had spread to her brain. He shook his head. He extended his hand. I've been a doctor for 28 years. But this, God truly works in mysterious ways. Then he became serious. We need to tell Mrs. Godsent immediately. Auntie Patience called her. Precious could hear only one side. Madam, something has happened with Olivia. No, she's better. She can hear. Yes, she's hearing sounds right now. The gatekeeper found something in her ear. There was shouting through the phone. She's coming back now, Auntie Patience said. She'll be here in 3 hours. She's very emotional. Those were the longest 3 hours of Precious's life. He sat watching Olivia discover that crickets chirped at night, that frogs croaked, that wind sounded different after sunset. Then, at 7:43 p.m., they heard a car approaching fast. Mrs. Godsent had arrived. The car screeched to a halt. Mrs. Godsent burst out like a hurricane. Her suit was wrinkled. Her makeup was smudged. Her eyes were wild. Where is she? Olivia turned toward her mother's voice. Mama? She said. Mama, I can hear you. Mrs. Godsent stopped running. She stood frozen, her hand over her mouth. Say it again, she whispered. Mama, I love you. Can you hear me? I can hear you, Mama. Mrs. Godsent fell to her knees and grabbed Olivia, holding her tight. Say Mama again. Mama, Mama, Mama. Mrs. Godsent wept. 9 years of grief came flooding out. She cried for all the years of silence, all the failed treatments, all the hopelessness. Finally, she looked up. Where is he? Where is the man who did this? Precious stepped forward, his heart pounding. Mrs. Godsent walked toward him and looked closely. Precious? Precious Okafor? Obi's little brother. Yes, Ma. She stared at him. You're my gatekeeper? Why didn't you tell me? I tried to visit, Ma, but I was told you don't see people without appointments. Fresh tears filled her eyes. Oh God, I'm so sorry. Then Mrs. Godsent knelt before him. Thank you. Thank you for giving me back my daughter. Precious knelt too. Please, Ma, stand up. No. She gripped his hands. Dozens of doctors looked at my daughter, specialists from everywhere. But none of them actually looked carefully enough. None of them cared enough. She turned to Auntie Patience. He stays, not as a gatekeeper, as family. Then she looked at Precious. Auntie Patience told me about your mother. How much does she need? Ma, I can't. How much? Maybe 2 million naira for 6 months. Wire 5 million to his account tomorrow morning. Precious's legs almost gave out. Ma, that's too much. It's nothing compared to what you gave me. Nothing. She addressed Dr. Adeyemi. Arrange for the best kidney specialist to see his mother. I'm paying for everything. She looked back at Precious. You're going back to school. Master's program, your choice. I'll pay everything. And when you finish, work in my company or start your own business. I'll fund it. Your sister, what's her name? Kayamika, Ma. Full scholarship. Back to school immediately. And when she finishes secondary school, full nursing degree. Precious fell to his knees from gratitude. Ma, this is too much. Mrs. Godsent knelt beside him. Listen carefully. I spent 9 years and 50 million naira looking for complex solutions. But the answer was simple, and it came from someone I overlooked. That's the real miracle. God used someone with nothing to help someone who had everything. She stood and addressed everyone. From today, things change. I forgot to see the people around me. That ends now. She turned to Dr. Adeyemi. We're starting a foundation, the Olivia Hearing Foundation. Free hearing examinations for children all over Nigeria. Proper examinations. We're not missing simple problems anymore. Over the next months, miracles multiplied. Mrs. Godsent kept every promise. She paid for Precious's mother's treatment. Within 3 months, she received a kidney transplant, fully paid for. Kayamika returned to school and later got into nursing school. Precious enrolled in a master's program in pharmaceutical chemistry. And Olivia began joining the hearing world. The first weeks were overwhelming, but she had the best speech therapist. Within 3 months, she could hold conversations. By 6 months, Olivia was in regular school, making friends, joining the choir. She discovered she had perfect pitch. The Olivia Hearing Foundation launched 8 months later. Mrs. Godsent invested 20 million naira. They bought mobile clinics, hired passionate doctors. In the first 6 months, they examined over 5,000 children. They found 237 with treatable hearing problems that had been misdiagnosed. 38 had foreign bodies. 112 had wax impaction. 43 had infections. 29 had reparable perforations. 15 had removable tumors. 237 children who had been told nothing could be done. One case stood out. A 7-year-old boy named Chukwudi had been deaf since age 2. His poor parents had accepted it. When the mobile clinic came, Dr. Adeyemi found massive wax impaction. After cleaning, Chukwudi could hear perfectly. His mother wept for hours. "Thank you, God. Thank you, Madam Godsent." The story became famous across Nigeria. Newspapers wrote about it. The gatekeeper who accomplished what specialists had missed. Precious was invited to speak at conferences, to remind future doctors that sometimes the simplest examination reveals what expensive tests miss. He always stayed humble. "I didn't do anything special. I just looked carefully because I cared." 1 year after that miraculous day, the mansion was transformed. Instead of sadness, there was joy. Mrs. Godsent threw a party for all 237 children the foundation had helped. They filled the gardens with music, laughter, joy. Olivia stood on a stage near the M. Olivia stood on a stage near the mango tree where her miracle had happened. She was 10 years old now, confident and radiant in a beautiful blue dress. She spoke into a microphone, her voice clear and strong. "My name is Olivia Godsent, and for 9 years of my life, I couldn't hear anything. My mama took me to the best doctors in the world. They had big machines and expensive tests. They all said the same thing: nothing can be done. Accept it." She paused. But my Uncle Precious didn't accept it. He was just a gatekeeper. He didn't have fancy equipment, but he had eyes that really looked and a heart that really cared. She pointed to the mango tree. It happened right there. He removed a cockroach that had been in my ear since I was a baby. All that time, all those doctors, and the answer was something so simple. The crowd murmured. Now I can hear everything. Music. My mama's voice. Birds singing. I can hear myself when I sing. Every day, I hear miracles. She looked at the children. If you're hearing for the first time, I want you to know, it's okay to be scared. The world is loud, but hearing is a gift. Listen to everything. Appreciate every moment. She paused. And to the parents, thank you for not giving up. Thank you for bringing your child to our foundation. Her voice broke. My papa died before I was born. I never heard his voice. I never will. But Uncle Precious tells me stories. He says my papa was brave and kind. He would be proud of Uncle Precious for helping me. The crowd erupted in applause. Precious stood at the back with his mother and sister, tears streaming down his face. When the applause died, Olivia spoke once more. This foundation is for all of us. For every child told nothing could be done. And remember, if you meet someone who needs help, don't walk away. Look carefully. Care deeply. You might change their life forever. After the celebration, Precious sat under the mango tree with Olivia. The sun was setting. Olivia sat cross-legged. Uncle Precious, tell me another story about my papa. Precious smiled. Did I tell you about the time he tried to cook for your mama? Olivia's eyes lit up. No. He wanted to impress her, so he told her he'd cook a romantic dinner. But he could only cook instant noodles. So I helped him. Somehow he burned water. The rice turned black. Smoke filled the kitchen. The alarm went off. Olivia giggled. Your mama showed up during the disaster. She laughed so hard she cried. Then she said, Obi, you're lucky you're handsome because you can't cook. And she ordered pizza. Did they get married after that? Eventually. Your mama said she fell in love not because he could cook, but because he tried hard to make her happy. His heart was bigger than his cooking skills. Olivia was quiet. I wish I could have heard his voice. Precious put his arm around her. He loved you so much. He sang to you before you were born. He had a terrible singing voice, but he sang anyway. What did he sing? Everything. Lullabies, church songs, pop songs. He made up words when he forgot them. Your mama laughed, but he didn't care. A tear rolled down Olivia's cheek. Do you think he knows? About my hearing. I think your papa watches over you every day. I think he guided my hands when I was scared. And every time you hear something beautiful, he's smiling in heaven. Olivia leaned against him, listening to the evening garden. Crickets chirping, leaves rustling, the fountain splashing. All the sounds she'd missed for 9 years. Uncle Precious? Yes, Princess. When I grow up, I want to be an ear doctor, so I can help kids like me. Precious smiled. You'll be amazing, and I'm going to look carefully at every patient. Check simple things first, not just complicated things. Like you did. That's very wise. Because sometimes the biggest problems have the simplest solutions. We just need someone brave enough to look. As the sun set and stars appeared, Precious thought about how his life had changed. From desperate gatekeeper to graduate student. From watching his mother die to seeing her thrive after transplant. From his sister giving up dreams to seeing her excel in nursing school. All because of one choice. One moment of compassion. One refusal to look away. He had thought God abandoned him. But God had been leading him all along, guiding him to exactly where he needed to be. Every rejection, every struggle, every hardship had prepared him for that moment when a child needed him. This was the real miracle. Not just that Olivia could hear, but that God could take broken pieces. A dead brother, a dying mother, a failed career, a desperate job, and weave them into something beautiful. Uncle Precious? Olivia's voice pulled him back. Yes. Thank you for being brave. Thank you for giving me ears that work. Precious kissed her head. Thank you for trusting me, Princess. Thank you for showing me that the smallest acts of kindness can change the whole world. They sat together, listening to the symphony of night sounds, grateful for second chances and simple miracles and the mysterious ways God answers prayers we didn't even know we were praying. This story shows that sometimes help doesn't come from the richest person or the most famous doctor. Sometimes, help comes from the quiet person at the gate who refuses to look away when a child is in pain. Sometimes miracles come wrapped in the simple courage to care. If you enjoyed this story and want more powerful stories like this, make sure you like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs hope today. Your one click can help this story reach more hearts. And remember, sometimes the help someone desperately needs is closer than they think. Sometimes it's standing right at their gate, waiting for permission to care. Don't walk past people who need help. Look carefully, care deeply, because you might just be the miracle someone has been praying for. End of story ***.